Greetings folks, this is Victor Haskins with our first guided practice for long tones. I'm not going to talk a whole lot, well I can't promise that, but I am going to give you little tips and hints as we go through that I think are very important to remember as you're doing this. And once again, I hope you practice with this video, and once you get the idea, of course you can continue to practice with it or do it on your own with your own drone that you might have. Remember to stay relaxed, remember to breathe when you need to, and also remember that you should take little breaks as you need to. So if if your chops get a little bit tired from holding the notes for long periods of time, don't feel like you need to press through. Instead, you don't want to be tired trying to do this, and this will tire your chops out a little bit, especially if this is the beginning phases of you doing it. Spend as long as you have available to spend on long tones. So if long tones is a part of a practice program that you're doing, you'll have to kind of fit it in and make it as long as makes sense in proportion to that practice program or how much time you have to practice. If you're just doing long tones, like I'm just doing long tones right now, then you might spend a little longer on it, on each pitch, and you should spend longer on the pitches that might need a little bit more tweaking, a little bit more focus to get them where you want them. So just keep that in mind, that this is something that is not necessarily a hard and fast template of you must do long tones for this amount of time. I'm not even sure how long this video is going to end up being. I'm just going to do the long tones and spend enough time on each pitch. Once again, you can rewind the video to go back to different pitches, or maybe you can slow the video down if that might be practical to have more time with certain pitches. And so without further ado, here we go. We're going to start on concert F, the G and the staff for trumpet players. I'm going to go from there to C sharp below the staff, or concert B right below the treble clef staff. So that's kind of our mid to lowish register. I usually start on a concert F with that G when I do long tones every day. That's kind of a nice middle starting pitch, and I'll do lower long tones and then maybe stretch upwards. But in this video, just going to go concert F to concert B. Remember to vary the dynamics at will, work on the softer side, work on the louder side, do some crescendi, some decrescendi as you're trying to get your chops to create that connection between your imagination and keeping the pitch steady and keeping the tone where you want it and consistent across that range of dynamics. Let's go half step down, concert E, F sharp for my B flat instruments. Let's go another half step down. Remember, as you're doing this with the drone, remember that your sound should sort of disappear into the sound of the drone, and that's why I encourage you to either use headphones, or use a headphone with like one headphone on and the other headphone off, or a nice speaker that can make it loud enough. A laptop speaker is going to be a little too weak for you to actually play comfortably. You're going to be straining to hear it. That's not going to really be effective if you're going to practice along with this video. But your drone on your tuner or metronome will probably be loud enough, and if not, plug it into like once again like a speaker, and that can help it make it loud enough so that way you can really hear yourself disappear into that sound, because when you're in tune, the sound waves are in sync, and so all you're going to have is you'll be able to hear the characteristic of your sound, because of course there are overtones and things that make this sound interesting versus just like the sine wave that's going on here for the drone sound. So remember, you're focusing on the intonation, and you're focusing on your sound and how you're producing that sound. So just remember, that's what you're focusing on. Another half step down, concert E flat. For concert D, which for trumpet players, that's your E at the bottom of the staff. If you have one of these, now we talked about the third valve slide. We talked about the third valve slide in that previous tutorial, which we will also be using very soon here. But something else that I might make a tutorial about is the first valve slide, which you may or may not have an adjustable first valve slide. Okay, the third valve slide, of course, alters notes that use the third valve. The first valve slide alters certain notes that use the first valve, which you might or might not need to use it. From my E at the bottom of the staff there, does need a little bit of this first valve. Otherwise, this first valve slide. Otherwise, I have to lip the note down. So I'm going to actually employ that, so that way I can make sure I'm getting the best intonation possible, so I can play in the fat part of the sound. The fat part of the sound being the most resonant part of the sound. So if we think about our sound as like these circles, okay, imagine a circle there, and so at the widest part of the circle, that's our fat part of the sound. That's like the middle of the note, so to speak, and that's where we want to aim as far as where the resonance is. That's where the most resonance in each note is. If we're below that, the sound will get very saggy, and if we're above it, the sound is tight. Okay, so and tight is not good in this case. I mean, it's not like, oh, that's tight, like that's cool. I don't mean tight. I mean tight like, oh, this shirt is 4 sizes too small. It's tight. We don't want a tight sound. We don't want a saggy sound. We want a fat, relaxed sound, and that's in the middle of that circle that is the tone. Okay, and I'll give you an example of that in a second when we get to our D. I'll give you a very good example of what we don't want and what we do want, and why we use these slides when they're available. So for the concert D, or the E at the bottom of the staff for my B flat instruments, I am going to use my first valve slide, which is, I'm going to kick it out just a little bit, so that way I can bring the pitch down so I can play in the center of the pitch. Concert D. So once again, I'm kicking that first valve slide out just a little bit. You may not, if you have a student horn, you may not have a saddle or a ring on that first valve slide, in which case, yeah, you don't have that option, and you do have to just lip that down in tune, which of course is a useful skill to be able to have because we don't always have slides available for every note that might need to be intoned differently. So, but if you do have it, make use of it at times when you might need it, like I do on that lower E. Now it's half step down. Now we're on concert D flat, E flat for my B flat instruments. Let's go ahead another half step down. Concert C, or D for my B flat instruments. Kick that third valve slide out, y'all. This is where you find out where your third valve slide goes. Now, before we actually do this for real, let me show you what happens when I leave the third valve slide all the way in. So, I'm going to play it first, put the drone on, I'm going to play with the slide all the way in. I'm going to play in the fat part of the sound. You're going to hear it's going to be very sharp. You're going to hear a lot of wobbles because it's going to be way sharper than the actual drone pitch. Then I'm going to use the third valve slide, and then you're going to hear, oh, fat tone and pitch is good. So this is why we use our third valve slide. Okay, so that's the pitch. Third valve slide all the way in. I'm going to play in the fat part of the sound now. I almost can't do it because the pitch is so sharp, it's just like clashing with these sound waves with her. But now I'm going to add the third valve slide in. You're going to hear I can be in the middle of the pitch and in the middle of the tone. Here it is. Half step down, concert B. Now that's an octave up, but we're still gonna play it in that lower octave, okay? So we just gotta make sure we're using our ears, no wobbles. Third valve slide. how far out that third valve slide is. Look how far out that is. This gold, the brass color there, that's how far out it is, okay? So that's how far I would have to lip that note down, to bend the pitch down to make it in tune. There's no way I'd be in the center of the sound if I was doing that. So make sure you use that third valve slide. That's it for this episode of Guided Practice. In the next episode of Guided Practice on long tones, we will be dealing with the pitches directly, the pitch set directly below that, which is from C, for my B-flat players, my trumpet players, from C down to low F sharp, or for anyone else who's a concert pitch instrument, concert B-flat down to concert E. And so, yeah, once again, fit this long tone practice into your practice session, however much time you have. Make it proportional. You don't have to spend as long as I did on each of those pitches, but if you have the time to do it, certainly do. Spend whatever time you need to, because once again, it's such a meditative practice. I mean, I'm demonstrating this, but I'm also practicing long tones for real, which is why I'm like really dialing in and trying to make sure all of my tones and pitches are sounding the way I want them to. So I hope that was helpful for you guys. If you have questions or comments, leave them down in the comment section down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.